Steve, long time.
Good morning, Mark. It's been a
Hey,
while.
I know. All sorts of things conspired against me.
Yeah, it's been that kind of year so far.
Uh, Over all the years, good. There's the RSA, then there was a break, and whatever. I mean,
Had
just,
a bunch of travel in there. I have.
oh yeah, where I've
Yeah.
been to.
I've been, the kind of travel I hoped was going to go away in COVID and never come back, where you fly to the East Coast, spend a day doing that, go
Uh-huh.
visit a customer the next day, and then go back to the airport and fly home.
Right.
We've got one customer who's a defense contractor, and
Hmm.
they can't bring phones in to the place of work. They're not super communicative over email or over phone. So our best strategy has been to just be there in person. The project moves along, but every 4 to 6 weeks we have to be there and
Right.
move things forward another notch.
So you're basically,
We're figuring out RDMA for enclaves. So
oh yeah,
yeah,
with RDMA. What is RDMA?
RDMA is the remote DMA capability that a lot of high performance IO cards have.
Uh-huh.
So TDIS doesn't exist yet. TD Connect doesn't exist yet to be able to bring the IO subsystem into the circle of trust.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but customer still wants to be able to use the fiber link between boxes.
Right.
And so we've got to be able to support their DMA process.
Mm,
So we have to
okay.
set up a bounce buffer and get everything encrypted off into the bounce buffer, and then the DMA can take it and ship it to the next box, and then you pull it out of the
Oh,
bounce buffer and decrypt it in
you
the other
mean
way.
you're doing actual engineering?
The it's good to do.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Just gonna give folks a couple of minutes. So you saw what I sent as an agenda. I'm a little frustrated with the progress on AI, the inferencing and training, and I'm thinking maybe I don't know, maybe the work isn't relevant. Like I'm really starting to doubt it. Maybe it's not done right. I mean, like how do you attest a modern uh, system? It's not just one model running in isolation. It never is,
we,
right?
we've had to shift all the work we were doing in the training and inference world has gone away as all the AI budgets are into LLMs these days.
Hmm.
um, I'm sure when the hype cycle pans out here on NLP, ML will come back and training will be an important part of how projects continue to function.
Right.
Um, but for the moment, absolutely nobody's got cycles for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm also detecting that, um, as I think I at this point I actually suspect from just the information I was able to gather is like executive compensation is misaligned. Uh, you know, if you're not going to do something ad related, you're not going to get rewarded. So a project that is not like that's completely necessary, but may not have a machine learning component to it, uh, may simply not get attention because everyone's like scrambling to find the sweet AI spot to fund.
Yep. Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily translate into, especially given lack of acceleration.
Well, yeah, I mean, AI used to be what we now call ML, and ML has now faded in the background to a large degree. And what people are calling AI is just using NLP solutions like LLMs.
Right.
And everybody is chasing after the productivity gains. Um, uh, and that's what we see.
Right. That makes sense. Okay, well, I'll tell you what. Let's get started on this because I really like looking. I've been sort of working on the reverse proxy governance in the background.
Okay.
So if you haven't opened the document yet,
I
I'll
have
put it in
not.
the chat. Yeah, you may be surprised just how well developed it is. I think it's not all the way there, but it is there. Oh, hold on, let me put that in here. Also, let me see if I can find, and I'm going to start sharing my screen in a second.
And then the
Okay.
other thought I had for today is we probably have to resell the organization at the TAC to get people coming again.
Yes. Yeah. I'm almost at a point where like I'll push reverse proxy governance out, and then I'm actually need to look for someone else to chair the SIG because I'm also doing TWI, and frankly, this has been slow, and I want to apply my efforts to where the distraction. But for now, oh my God, like last minute. Last time when it was like last time I had meeting minutes was believe it or not, February 25th. So like 2 months ago. Yeah. So today is 22nd. So yeah, okay.
Exactly 2 months ago.
Yeah, and even then it was just me. So
What date was it? February.
22nd, 25th.
Let me go back to my calendar and see what I was doing on the 25th. I wasn't traveling.
Well, yeah, it
Oh
is what
no.
it is. So okay, so you can open the link now. I'm gonna share
Yeah,
my
I've got it open.
screen.
I'm in there.
Yeah. And let's see, share my screen. And this is the one I want to put there. All right, you should be able to see it. So let's just first scroll through it. By the way, it's very closely related to verifier governance because they're both like trusted services, but this one is also potentially multiple of them. They're sequential. So you'll see maybe this is somewhat inelegant diagram, um, but like this is, let me just bring it into Zoom here. Um, but so this is the thing. We have a bunch of clients. We're
Yep.
going through reverse proxies. We want trust execution environment isolation in good chunks of them. Certainly the tenant part. The tenant because tenant may not trust the service. Turns out. And I just added this little bracket up here because there could be multiple of them.
Yeah. I use a drop shadow for the multiple whenever I'm
But
doing
it's
plot
it's not,
diagrams.
but they're multiple sequential. They're not multiple. Like see clients here could be, they're all sending your stuff at the same time. But here you may go through one type of reverse proxy, then you go to another type of reverse proxy, then you go into another type of reverse proxy, and actually created a sort of a list and taxonomy towards the end in the appendix that I may need to bring into the document itself. But this is like there is actually perhaps multiple of these blocks stacked behind each other. They're not in parallel, they're sequential. So like drop shadow for me is more of a parallel processing
Right.
indicator, right? Okay. So we have the roles. By the way, I want to spend little time on things that can be copy and pasted from the verifier because like we already agreed on the wording, so why spend more time? Yeah.
Right.
So I have this to do. So I was looking at the verifier pattern, and then actually found that it doesn't actually render properly. So there's actually a bug in the document we published. Uh, I'll show it to you here in case
We have to
you should be able
republish.
to see it. But like, see how right here, so there is this table in the assets in the
Yep.
verifier, and then look, there is some table stuff that did not get rendered.
Oh,
So I actually filed an issue. I'll fix that on GitHub. We'll need to republish the document. But the point is, there is content here that we signed off and approved. I would like to copy it as closely as possible in here.
okay.
So we have a role section, we have the asset section. Now, the one issue I raised this morning. So our C column also exists in the verifier. It's called required confidentiality, and I just want to put in there saying, what's actually worth protecting the secrets of. Um, so we have an asset type of secrets, right? So reverse proxy tenant secrets.
Yep.
So under that is, encryption, signing keys, whatever. But I was wondering if we should have separate sort of credential. And the idea is if I'm in the workload credential world, I haven't seen you in those meetings, but we've been making progress on uh, how to endow trusted or confidential workloads with workload identity,
Okay.
right? So that basically the idea there is if a workload can have a tightly bound credential and can use confidential computing to protect its credentials, so you always know which workload you're talking to, like
Right.
it's not in question. Well, data and use protection becomes a nice uh, add-on to that. It's a nice additional property. So see how like we just flipped it on its head, right? Rather than saying, well, this thing protects in data and use, so you have to treat it separate, specially. Like frankly, a lot of confidential computing is done today.
Right.
Oh, we recognize this workload as confidential, and because of that, we're going to give it some encrypted data that only it can decrypt.
Yep.
That's not how majority of workloads work today. They authenticate, they establish a secure channel with some counterparty, and then they receive plain text data and process it. Now, wouldn't it be nice that we actually knew what process that really was, like beyond the shadow of a doubt, and then,
Yeah.
by extension, oh, hey, whatever data you give it, we'll protect it at rest, in use, sorry, which
It,
is,
long term, I actually feel the identity properties of confidential compute are the more valuable ones than the isolation properties.
yeah,
Everyone gets all excited about encrypted memory, and usually that's where people's brains get full, and that's where they stop thinking.
yeah,
Um, but the ability to identify a workload has I think bigger implications long term. All the
yeah.
DeFi guys, that property is huge.
Okay, so I'm very glad that we agree, but this is what drives me to, push the TWI forward. And in fact, if you watch the recording of yesterday's meeting with the attestation SIG, I was
Yep.
making a pitch to them that they really need to start thinking about relying parties and relying party stability. They haven't, like, I guess these folks, because they don't deploy their own products or something, I don't know. They do not realize that a client and a server may belong to different organizations. And
That's
if the
right.
two organizations in an enterprise need to coordinate, like a rollout of an update, that's a no-go.
Correct.
That means just like your product, and this is like, and one of the counter arguments I gave to Usama, who was basically saying, but how can relying party detect that, something drifted about the workload? I said, well, do you want a research project or do you want a commercial, success? Because if you want to deploy it, you need to meet the customer where the customer is at.
That's right.
And that, we can still do it securely. We just need to shift where volatility is contained. Okay, so anyway, but
So on the secrets versus other credentials or identifiers, uh, to the technology, it doesn't matter, right? They're just secrets that you're going to load
right,
into the enclave, into the TEE. But if it matters to the use case, then I think it should be separated out. And so that really
yeah,
depends later on if there's a need to call out identity independently from other secrets,
yeah.
then we should definitely define it up in the assets.
So under verifier, we have secrets,
Yep.
we have signing keys, and we have encryption keys.
Yeah, I think that had to do with the fact that that particular use case required us to differentiate those three.
Yeah. Well, um, yeah, again, um, we'll need to make a decision on that. We don't need to make the decision right now, but I would like to, I think, like certainly by end of this quarter, I'd like to get this pattern published. So yeah, within a
Yeah,
couple
well,
of
I
months.
think what we could do is just leave it as secrets for now. And if there's a compelling reason when we're writing the text to split it apart, then we just split it apart at that point.
Correct. So let me, um,
Yeah, I agree with your to do. I've not been paying attention to remote attestation, TLS, and how that's been developing. Um, so that's an important part of how the reverse proxy is going to function.
Yeah. So, well, but it may be that the reverse proxy really is the front-facing thing. Like, I am the stock trading platform, whatever,
Mhm.
right? And
Yep.
behind it, yeah, there is a bunch of things that get involved, but the client doesn't need to know that. So you may imbue the front end that the client talks to with a certain identity, and then orchestrate, according to your own internal needs behind the scenes. That could be at least one way of doing it. But yeah, I actually it would be nice if you yeah, no, you can take a look at on the mailing list. I sent the proposal and the presentation to the mailing list, so
Okay.
you can uh, review what the TWI was up to. Because again, if you believe that this is where, as I do, where these things are headed, your review may be very timely now, because we're also going to start taking this to the ITF. So we'll be publishing another draft for Vienna. So, let me know if you have any comments. Again, all the links are in that attestation SIG
Okay.
email that I sent. Okay. So, forces. Again, this is very similar to what's under verifier. So there's security and trust concerns. Yeah,
Yep. The number one is the biggest one is if I'm setting up a secure workload and assuming I don't have anything in between me and my Calvin Kleins, if you will, the reverse proxy breaks that model.
right.
And for an organization like a large bank, the reverse proxy might be required because you don't want any
Absolutely
traffic
is, yes.
that is doing its thing. So that's for me, that's the biggest issue for how to put this process in place.
Hmm. Hmm. So, and again, running just a little bit ahead. So this is where we are. But if you scroll to the very bottom of the document, I list the various types of proxies because the application firewalls and their load balancers and there
Yep.
are API gateways, right? And maybe we can make that list a little bit more complete. And they're also deployed in a certain order. And then we can talk about, the specialized requirements of each and if they differ. Like there may be, I can also see a situation where uh, I refer to it uh, here, balancing security and privacy. So this is where I'm basically saying, look, you may actually need to do some application level encryption between the client and the server so that even a reverse proxy cannot peer inside some of it.
There it is. You've got balancing security and privacy twice. I was looking at the solution one.
There is security and trust.
There, if you just go down a little further, there's another four balancing, but it's in the solution as opposed to the forces.
Oh yeah, but
I
because
was just
remember,
reading the wrong.
solutions refer to forces always.
Yeah, you took me to the bottom of the document. I was working my way back up, and
Oh yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
saw it and was reading the wrong one.
yeah. Okay. So okay, so going down, so you'll see that there is basically for all the forces, the sections have already been filled in. Now, and again, I need other pairs of eyes on it to review. And this is where this is kind of the content ends. So need to basically you can see that's kind of an abrupt end after six, like, okay, need a little bit more content.
Okay.
And here BNI stands for break and inspect. I'll just put it otherwise nobody else will know. And then this will be fairly easy to fill out.
I almost feeling like balancing security and privacy should come right after security and trust concerns, ahead of performance and regulatory compliance, because in a nutshell, it's why this document exists. Uh,
Right, let's
uh,
do that.
the um, there's a reason for putting the reverse proxy in place, and there's a reason for putting confidential compute in place, and they're going to be at odds with each other.
Yes. And I also think regulatory and compliance should go in front of availability and performance also, like
Yep,
just in terms of maybe even with system of record considerations. Actually, maybe all of them. Availability and performance is perhaps the least we can do about.
that's right. But once you make the assumption that you're going to be cracking open the packets, there is a performance requirement, but it's nowhere near on the conceptual level of the rest. It's a physical problem, not a logical problem.
Yep. Yeah, this is not like I included it for the same reason we included it under the tenant sorry under verifier, but I feel like nothing about this is confidential computing specific. Like we may in fact remove it from both just because I don't want to pollute it with things that you already need to do in what in other domains. So I'm going to add a comment, consider removing. Let's do maybe we'll just pull it out. Who cares ultimately? Okay, so now we have that reordering. So I agree with that. Good feedback. Uh, and again, so it's perhaps best that folks just review this and provide comments because then uh, by the time we meet again in 2 weeks, this can all be polished and like, ideally just ready for publication.
Yep.
Because this is again this captures most of it. But the only other thing I added, which this was like at this point almost like notes to self. Uh, I added proxy types and OSI layers because I want to take a look and see, maybe just see, how applicable is the guidance here. So for instance, if you're doing network level stuff, like that's low. Like confidential computing is not about like IP proxies and packet filtering. There is no deep inspection at layer three.
Um, in the um, in the solution, balancing security and privacy under the
Hmm.
full model versus the partial model. This is ultimately an application level decision. Um,
Yes.
there's nothing the reverse proxy can do about the fact that if the application chooses to encrypt some data end to end, the application can do that. Um, and so I almost feel like
Well, that's what it says. The balance between security and privacy related to transport level versus application level encryption and the role of reverse proxy is a decision left to the customer and driven by customer requirements and obligations. Like it literally says that.
and so I hadn't read the next one. I was still reading one and two. That's funny. The so what um
And by the way, we need to reorder this one as well. Sorry, let me just do that real quick.
match the others order?
Yes. So we're gonna move that one
How did
second.
these decisions get captured in the organization? um, because there's an essential conflict between confidential computing and the reverse proxy. It feels like the technical solutions here are relatively light. You either give permission to crack open the TLS because and that's something that has to plug into the attested TLS at some point, or you don't give permission to it. And the two parties are going to have to agree this is how we're going to operate. You're operating a system inside the bank. You're going to play by these rules.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's really that's like literally decided by the customer and when I say the customer, there are normally a couple of levels, right? So there are application teams, they develop applications, but then there is like security and compliance and controls oversight, also part of the organization, but they set certain standards, and those standards are informed by things like audit, compliance, jurisdiction sometimes, right? You may need to do different things in different places. So, the architecture should deliver the flexibility, and you know, this document should simply outline, where the flexibility should be given so that the customer is free to, do what's best for them.
Yep. Yeah.
That's really it. Like
And that's
that,
actually the crux of the document is this is something the customer is going to have to decide and the technology should support it or needs to support it, making those
exactly,
decisions.
exactly. So, like uh, so my reading of a regulation in one of those places in the world we consider high risk location. High risk location effectively means we don't, we have to operate in a region, but we have questions. Okay. So in one of these high risk locations, the regulator says, here's some software we want you to run on your reverse proxies. We're not going to tell you what that software does, but we want remote access to it. Okay. So your interpretation is as good as mine of what that means.
Yep.
That, as a security person, my sphincter clenches very tightly, and I want a trusted execution environment around my reverse proxy so I can run something, side by side with it. Right. So,
Looking at the question, what can break and inspect gateway change about the request? And can the back end know what came from the originator and what came from the gateway? Um,
where's that
it's down at, just before
under
governance
solution?
expectation. It's in solutions. It's the tail end of solutions. And ultimately, unless there's a
What,
application,
which section? Sorry,
it's in the solution section
but where in this?
right after bullet 6.
Hold on.
There's a use cases,
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
development.
This question, this to do. Yeah.
Um, Ultimately, the back end doesn't know what came from the gateway and what came from the originator unless there's an application level protocol to know
Mhm.
that. Um, just by looking at what was received, you put a man in the middle, and the man in the middle, by design, is going to be able to change things.
Mhm. Okay, so
Um,
how about answer? This has to be decided at the application design level.
yep, there's no other way to solve it.
No, that's great. That's good that you pointed that out because then when I editing this later, I will figure out the proper place to land it. Document the mechanism for reverse proxies to be deployed sequentially. So I did that as a to-do, and then I basically started, putting things in place. Like what I said at the very beginning on the diagram, there's could be one or more of these, and then this entire table down below that basically says, here you go. You have,
Okay, yeah.
um, you know, your edge proxy, then a WAF, an API gateway, and a load balancer. Are there any other, um,
In the
like
AI,
DLP? Where does DLP go?
yeah, DLP
It's
probably
kind of on the
goes.
way out, right? DLP is sort of, it's not a reverse proxy. It's a proxy. It's a forward proxy.
Yeah,
Should we then, by the way, that's a good question. Should we do both forward and reverse proxies? As if your forward proxy does DLP, I mean, isn't it subject to the same types of concerns?
it is. It
So
is. And I'm thinking about gateways now as well because,
maybe we'll rename this into proxy and gateway governance.
yeah, because gateways serve that same function in the LLM world. Um, uh, we're doing a fair bit of that at this point where we're modifying the messages back and forth between the agent and the LLM Of course, doing that in confidential computing for the same reasons that the reverse proxy tenant is running in confidential computing. You want integrity guarantees and isolation guarantees over the code that's doing that break and inspect.
Yeah. All right. Oh, we just renamed it. This is good. Okay. So that's again, I will have to basically go. All right. So, so this means pretty much everything needs to be renamed. It's no longer reverse proxy. I'll just call them PGs, proxies, gateways, whatever. And this means like everything needs to get renamed. Great. Maybe I can unleash a chatbot on
Search and replace.
something like that. Okay. All right. Do you want to spend some time just looking over some of the other content that's been developed? So just to see if any, like, since we have another half hour, do you want to wrap up early, maybe do it offline?
We can. I've been reading through it as we go and asking questions.
Hmm.
There's a lot of good content in here. Um, I feel like our summary statement that ultimately the fundamental tensions exist and have to be sorted out at an organizational level, not a technical level. The technology just needs to enable it. We should probably have that summary up in the top. So I know that's not the way these docs are usually written, but
So how
that
would you
that will
do it?
drive clarity to where the document's going to drive.
Well, but that's supposed to be handled by context, right? The way patterns are written, context should basically say, you may find yourself in the following situation.
Yep. Okay.
And then the problem says, when you're in this situation, you may have to solve the following problems. And then the forces say, well, when you try to solve this problem, you may find the certain things difficult. And then the solution says, well, all the things that pose a challenge, this is how you solve them. That's the pattern. Like that's, and we've done it for everything else. Now, what's the difference between a proxy and a gateway? Do we,
I think it's just vocabulary.
well, otherwise I can just call it proxy governance or network proxy, or I can.
See what Claude has to say about it.
Gateway is a node that connects to different networks using different protocols. A gateway converts the data. And proxies are usually protocol specific. So you basically HTTP and HTTP out. So then it makes sense to keep both proxy and gateway because for purposes of confidential computing, it doesn't matter what you do. Make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Interesting. The definition I pulled up, it says, a proxy often transforms a request rather than forwarding it. A gateway often transforms the request, where a proxy is usually just transform or just forwarding the request.
Oh God. So the bots disagree.
They always do. They're
Okay.
not outputting knowledge, they're outputting stuff that someone would think was reasonable as an answer,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
what they're trained
Okay.
on.
So we may need to. Well, it may actually be in the document. We can simply say the meaning of proxy and gateway, may differ between, depending on who you ask. But the one thing remains unchanged is they sit between a client and a server, and they, deal with traffic that flows between, sometimes modifying it and sometimes, you know, just looking at it.
Yeah,
Because ultimately, for the purposes of the document, actually, like the precise definition of those terms doesn't really affect anything.
it does not make any difference. And it doesn't matter. I mean, the interesting thing in the definitions I got was a proxy acts on behalf of the client,
Hmm.
reverse proxy acts on behalf of the server, and
Yeah.
a gateway is a more general concept that's a boundary on a protocol. Um, all three of them are man in the middle. Um, uh, and man in the middle usually has security concerns. So interceptor or mediator is a more general term, but nobody would find it if we called it, the mediator governance. It really does need to probably be proxy governance or reverse proxy governance.
Okay, run this by me again. You're thinking we should drop gateway?
I think we should drop gateway, and then we should just in the context, we can explain that this includes anytime you have a middleman. So you've got a mediator in the loop that needs to see the content of the conversation. And
Okay.
businesses do this all sorts of reasons, whether
So right. So on one hand, you were saying, that's what I'm trying to struggle with. There are two kinds of proxies. There are proxies and there are gateways. In a sense that proxy keeps the protocol, gateway changes the protocol. That's one definition, like it or not. And then the other one that basically says, well, proxies are between client and service, and gateway is a more general concept. Like if I simply say, you know, in the introduction that enterprises frequently put uh, effectively man in the middle processing between the client and the server, and it goes by a variety of names,
yep,
right?
that's how I
Uh,
was proposing handling it, was not trying to get it all in the title,
mhm.
but make the title something that is going to be generic enough to grab the right audience. And then in the introduction, explain that this covers anywhere you have to break and inspect for an organizational purpose.
Well, but how would that reflect in the title? Like if it's not going to be proxy and gateway,
But I would just call it proxy
trusted
governance.
intermediary.
I was going to literally go back to your original title. What's most likely to get somebody here is somebody talking about a proxy, and somebody thinking about a reverse proxy is also going to think about
Well,
proxy.
I should not then say just reverse proxy, right? Because reverse proxy governance means there is a separate document called forward proxy governance, and that's not the
Correct.
goal. So should I keep proxy and gateway, or should I say maybe trusted intermediary governance?
I don't think people know what we're talking about with trusted intermediary. So I think proxy and governance, gateway governance is better.
Okay, so we'll keep that title, proxy and gateway governance. And then
And
maybe
then,
internal to the document, I'll just use trusted intermediary
yep,
as a wildcard term for whatever it is that you have and however you choose to define it, because it really doesn't matter.
yep.
Okay.
And then we just say it covers all of these situations. The trusted intermediary is anywhere the organization has placed a break and expect capability in the network traffic for a variety of reasons.
Sounds good.
And confidential computing must coexist with this environment,
Yep.
and it's not going to be happy about
Well, we'll make it happy.
it. We'll make it happen.
We'll make it. We'll make it. Okay. So, all right. I
And,
think with that, again, I would appreciate if you did book a whole hour, just go
okay.
through this, and let's see what additional changes you would make. Just, sprinkle comments throughout, and hopefully in 2 weeks' time, this document is going to be near ready for sign off. I'll just make sure of that.
I think it's pretty close.
It is pretty close. It just
It's
needs
pretty close.
a few more touches, and that's it. Sweet. Well, thank you very much for all your help and insight. This
Okay.
certainly made the document better.
Thank you,
And
Mark.
I will see you in 2 weeks.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye bye.